What happens when a team that just tasted World Series glory decides that close enough isn't good enough anymore? There's a particular kind of hunger that comes from losing in Game 7. It's not the despair of a first-round exit or the disappointment of missing the playoffs entirely. No, this is different. This is the agony of being one game away from immortality, of having the champagne on ice and watching it get warm. The Toronto Blue Jays know that feeling all too well after falling to the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 2025 World Series, and if the whispers coming out of the front office are any indication, they're not about to let that bitter taste linger. The question isn't whether Toronto will be aggressive this offseason, it's how aggressive they're willing to be. And according to ESPN's Kylie McDaniel, the answer might involve a pivot that could reshape the entire complexion of this lineup, Japanese slugger Munetaka Murakami. Let's establish the landscape here. The Blue Jays have been heavily linked to Kyle Tucker, the Houston Astros superstar outfielder, who represents exactly the kind of proven, elite talent that championship-caliber teams covet. Tucker's combination of power, plate discipline, and defensive versatility makes him one of the most coveted players on the market. Landing him would be a statement, a declaration that Toronto isn't just trying to get back to the World Series, they're trying to dominate it. But here's where it gets fascinating. What if Tucker signs elsewhere? What if the bidding war escalates beyond even Toronto's newly demonstrated willingness to spend? That's where Murakami enters the conversation. And this isn't some consolation prize we're talking about. Munetaka Murakami isn't just another international prospect hoping to make the transition to Major League Baseball. This is a player who has absolutely terrorized Nippon professional baseball pitching, a left-handed power hitter with the kind of raw exit velocity data that makes analytics departments salivate. According to McDaniel's reporting, the Yankees, a franchise that has built its recent evaluation philosophy around exit velocity and age, are circling precisely because Murakami checks both boxes emphatically. The Blue Jays just committed massive resources to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., locking down one of baseball's premier talents for the long haul. That move signaled something crucial. Toronto's competitive window isn't some distant future projection. It's right now. When you make that kind of investment, you don't sit back and hope the rest of the roster fills itself out. You double down. You triple down if necessary. Murakami represents the kind of calculated risk that separates good front offices from great ones. While other teams might balk at the uncertainty of international transitions, Toronto has demonstrated both the infrastructure and the cultural environment to help international players thrive. They've seen firsthand how elite talent from Japan can transform a lineup, and they understand that the learning curve, while real, is often shorter than skeptics predict. The power profile is undeniable. Murakami's ability to drive the ball with authority to all fields isn't just impressive by NPB standards, it translates to the kind of production that changes innings in the majors. We're talking about a hitter who could slot into the middle of Toronto's order and immediately provide protection for Guerrero, creating a nightmare scenario for opposing pitchers trying to navigate the heart of that lineup. McDaniel's report lays out the competition, and it's formidable. The Cubs are retooling with an influx of young talent and have the financial flexibility to make a splash. The Giants, perpetually searching for that missing offensive piece, could certainly make a compelling pitch. And if the Astros move Christian Walker's contract, they'd have both the need and the resources to stay in the hunt. But here's what separates Toronto from that pack: urgency. The Cubs are building toward something. The Giants are trying to find something. The Blue Jays, they already had something, they know exactly what it feels like, and they came up one game short. That's a different kind of motivation entirely. This isn't about hope or potential or 5-year plans. This is about a franchise that proved it can compete with the best team in baseball and lost by the slimmest of margins. When you're that close, every decision becomes magnified. Every roster spot matters. Every at-bat in a crucial October game could be the difference between another heartbreaking Game 7 loss and a championship parade. Let's address the elephant in the room: money. The Guerrero contract was massive, and adding either Tucker or Murakami represents another significant financial commitment. But here's the thing about being one game away from a championship, it clarifies priorities real fast. Toronto's front office has demonstrated they're not operating under artificial budget constraints when championship-caliber talent is available. They've shown they understand that windows don't stay open forever, that the combination of talent, health, and timing that got them to Game 7 might not align perfectly again for years. Murakami, while certainly not cheap, likely represents a more manageable financial commitment than Tucker would. That's not to diminish his value. It's simply the reality of international signings versus established MLB stars hitting free agency. If Toronto can secure comparable production at a lower cost, that flexibility could allow them to address other roster needs, whether that's bullpen depth, starting pitching insurance, or defensive upgrades. Imagine this lineup for a moment. Bo Bichette setting the table, Guerrero providing the thunder in the middle, and Murakami adding another dimension of power from the left side. That's not just good, that's potentially elite. That's the kind of offensive firepower that can carry you through the inevitable cold stretches that every team faces during a 162-game grind. The defensive positioning would need to be sorted out, certainly. Murakami's most natural fit is likely at a corner position, either first base or an outfield spot, which means Toronto would need to get creative with their alignment. But these are good problems to have. These are the kinds of roster puzzles that championship teams figure out because the offensive production makes it worthwhile. And let's not overlook the intangible factor here. Adding a player of Murakami's caliber, someone who has dominated at the highest level of Japanese baseball and is hungry to prove himself on the MLB stage, brings an edge to a clubhouse. It sends a message to the rest of the roster that management is all in, that they're not content with moral victories or good seasons. They want the trophy. Of course, none of this means the Blue Jays have given up on Tucker. McDaniel's reporting specifically frames Murakami as a contingency plan, a pivot option if the Tucker pursuit doesn't materialize. And make no mistake, if Toronto can land Tucker, they probably should. He's the more proven commodity, the safer bet, the player with years of MLB production demonstrating he can handle the pressure and the competition. But the fact that they're even considering Murakami as a legitimate alternative tells you something important about how this front office is thinking. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're not going to let a bidding war for one player prevent them from upgrading the roster. They have options, they have flexibility, and they have the financial resources to execute whatever plan makes the most sense. That's the mindset of a team that learned something from their World Series run. They learned that talent wins, that depth matters, and that you can't be afraid to make bold moves when the opportunity presents itself. The Toronto Blue Jays are at a crossroads that every franchise dreams of reaching. They're good enough to compete for championships right now, they have the financial backing to add elite talent, and they have a front office that seems to understand the urgency of the moment. Whether that elite talent ends up being Kyle Tucker or Munetaka Murakami might ultimately matter less than the fact that they're aggressively pursuing both. This is what championship-caliber organizations do. They don't settle. They don't make excuses about budget constraints or development timelines. They identify what they need, they go after it relentlessly, and they're willing to take calculated risks to get it. Losing in Game 7 can break a franchise, or it can galvanize one. Based on everything we're seeing from Toronto this offseason, they've chosen the latter. They're not satisfied with being close. They're not content with a great story and a valiant effort. They want the trophy, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get it. Whether that means landing Tucker, pivoting to Murakami, or finding some other creative solution we haven't even considered yet, one thing is clear. The Blue Jays are coming back hungrier, more determined, and potentially more dangerous than ever. And for the rest of the American League, that should be a terrifying thought. What do you think? Is Murakami the right pivot if Tucker signs elsewhere, or should Toronto hold out for the proven MLB star? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and smash that like button if you're as excited as we are about what this Blue Jays roster could become.